is called Standstill, and it tells the story of Amanda, who gets trapped in a highway traffic jam, and her blood sugar starts to get lower and lower and lower, and her body closes in on her, and she has to find a solution to survive before it's too late. And she's accompanied by her pet goldfish as she was about to move in with her boyfriend and bringing all her things. So she's at a point of transition in her life. And it's really an important story for me to tell, because as a coming out as a director, I wanted to talk about something that was very intimate and very personal, so that it could have a unique signature to it. And that unique signature comes from the fact that I am type 1 diabetic myself, and it's a reality that I have never seen expressed accurately, physically, emotionally, and that I wanted to share that experience with people, because they don't know. Most people just, think that it's such an easy thing to go through because we don't make a big fuss about it the whole time. But
it's a really misunderstood subject, and the number of people that we've talked to, we've been talking about the film, that said, well, does that really happen? Then it's, and you meet, it does, and it's a really deep insight into the emotional aspect and how it feels to be in that situation, and to bear all and put yourself out there when you're really in need and ask, you need help. People don't often want to help people. Like, when you're low,
I come across a bit
either very direct or a little bit crazy. Sometimes maybe drunk, and you can be. Imagine you're in a public place and you just look drunk, but actually what you need is sugar, or for whatever reason you're in need. Yeah.
You get to discover worlds through stories, and I made Standstill because I wanted to give people an insight into my emotional landscape and my world, and it's something that I've never expressed in words very much, because film is my medium, and I think I've confided more of my soul in this short than I would with words to any other person in the world.
And yet it affects so many people.
Yeah, and
it doesn't have to be diabetes. It's any time that you're in need.
Yeah, anytime you feel vulnerable because there's something a bit different about you, and it's not something that people can see from the outside. Most of the time they look at me and they're like, you look fine, but it doesn't take away from the fact that there are internal struggles that we all have. And I think Standstill was made to be able to bridge the gap and inspire people to maybe not have the automatic fear response when you don't understand something, but reach out and see where that can go. And most people aren't out there to harm you, actually, and it's so empowering once you close that bridge, or you breach that gap of being two strangers and then being united because you've done something to help each other out. I don't know any different than being a female filmmaker, because that's just who I am. I've been lucky to be surrounded by peers and co-workers that are extremely supportive and that really believed in me as a director and really respected me and gave me the tools to communicate with them my vision and to work together towards a bigger goal. I feel like there are qualities about my point of view that are unique because I am a film director that is also a woman, and I think that the lead actress herself being a woman wasn't an accident. It was because it was reflecting not only my point of view, but it's my point of view from the perspective of being a woman. I don't think being a woman has to do with the vulnerability in the case of Standstill, because it's men and women would feel equally vulnerable in that respect, and I have so many friends who also share this type 1 diabetes condition, and I feel so lucky that I grew up in Canada in a place where I always had what I needed to stay alive, and I've had the chance to travel and to help people in Ecuador who have type 1 diabetes a lot. And two of the campers that I was mentoring who are younger than me by like 10 years have already passed away because of it. And
because the infrastructure isn't in place to support them.
Yeah, and so for me, this is a really serious problem that hasn't been given a voice. And if the voice comes through the voice of a woman, then so be it. And I think for sure it affects how I tell the story, and maybe certain types of choices of maybe rendering the emotional landscape of the character. But I think that's what it gives it its quality, and it's something I have to embrace. Diabetes kills about 1.6 million people every year from its direct complications, and yet when we see it in the media, it's always perceived as something that either you put on yourself because you didn't take care of yourself, or something that's very belittled and you just have to like carb count a little bit or look at your food and be careful of what you're eating. But what I wanted to share with Standstill is that it's so much more than that. It's a constant struggle to stay alive, making decisions that will affect your ability to stay alive in the moment. And you never run out of you never have a break from making those decisions. You make these decisions every hour of every day for the rest of your life. And at a certain point, there's education that comes into line, there's your financial ability to buy everything that you need to stay alive, but there's also the emotional saturation of it. And if I want to communicate one thing with Standstill is that it might be a bit more complex than you think. So maybe next time you meet someone who has that, ask them a question about it.
And that split-second decisions that most of us take for granted can have such a big consequence in your life. Just by forgetting or not being prepared or forgetting something that's going to help you, you can end up in trouble very quickly.
Yeah. And there's a reason why I never mention the word diabetes in Standstill, and that's because in real life people don't walk around with a billboard. You don't get all the information up front sometimes. So it's up to everyone to dig and to look at each other and to ask the harder questions. A little bit like Elspeth did with me when she saw me in the lineup, and she was just like, "Hi, you're working in film, sure, but what do you really want to do?" And I think I want Standstill to make us ask those questions to each other.